Hey, welcome to Across the Pond, e-commerce recruiting with Adam and Andy. Adam based in the US, Andy in the UK, where we talk about all things e-commerce recruiting from two of your favorite e-commerce recruiters. It's been a while since we had our last episode. Things have been crazy on our end. Luckily, over the past month or so, things have really picked up on the hiring end. So we've been quite busy, and we've actually been recruiting for our own teams as a result, gearing up. I don't see e-commerce slowing down at any point. Companies are investing very heavily in it. There are certain industries where things have been decimated due to COVID, where hospitality, travel, rental cars, cruise lines, you name it. But there are certain industries that are just, the products are flying off the digital shelves at this point. Consumer goods and furniture and beauty, food and beverage, online grocery, you name it. So we are gearing up for this activity, and we want to share what the process has been like for us, hiring for our own teams, being the hiring manager rather than really the recruiter at this point, where candidates have been on the mark and where they've been missing in terms of the interview process itself. We think we can give some really interesting tips here. And I will tell you that I have a lot of empathy at this point for our hiring managers, because hiring is difficult. It is extremely time consuming. It is very hard. So this is a very humbling experience, and one that I think allows us to fully empathize with our hiring managers and the clients that we're working with. So Andy, I'm going to let you kick it off. How has the process been for you hiring for your team, and what exactly have you been recruiting for?
Yeah, so I just on your last point there, I would it's an interesting one, isn't it? I would echo that. Like, it's for someone who spends all my time talking about hiring and filling jobs and finding people for jobs. I always come when I come to do it for myself, I always think there's a lot, like, I'm not great at it, or like there's always a lot I've got to learn throughout the whole process, really. The outreach side of it, but also we'll come on to this a bit at the end, but like the interviewing process itself. I think when I started hiring years ago, when I started hiring people, I kind of just took it for granted that I could just kind of go into an interview, talk to people and figure out like whether they were right, whether they were a good fit, whether they'd be successful, without putting too much thought actually into how I went about that. Yeah. And I still think that's something where I'm always kind of learning and figuring it out and trying to kind of, there's a couple, again, we'll come on to it, but certain things I always look for, which I find it pretty hard to interview for. So trying to figure out how to kind of pull those things out of interviews is tough for sure. Yeah. So yeah, we're hiring for a couple of roles at the minute. I think we're hopefully close to filling both actually, but we have kind of been looking for a while. One of them is, well, both kind of e-commerce focused, just slightly different, because we have our kind of in-house model, and we're looking for someone there, so they'll just be aligned to one client that we're about to start working with.
Do they sit on site at that client?
Yeah, I mean, typically they would, obviously right now not, but they would spend a few days a week there, and sometime in our office, sometime remotely. So a combination of all of that.
Yeah, we have that in the US. We refer to it as more of a recruiting process, RPO. Recruiting process outsourcing.
Yeah, so there's a lot that's been around for quite a while, but it tends to have been with much bigger businesses. And most of the big RPOs over here, would only work with kind of like pretty sizable contracts. In the last few years, there's been a lot of growth in that model, but for much smaller businesses. So that kind of flexible subscription, you can turn it on for a few months, turn it off for a few months. It's more flexible than a lot of those RPOs where it's a kind of longer term contract. But essentially that kind of thing. So hiring for that, which is still a similar-ish model of person, although people with a bit more in-house experience there are obviously a good fit. And hiring for our e-commerce team at Vertical Advantage, which is a 360 role, where we're hiring at kind of open to level. Like I would always be pretty flexible when we're hiring to say, actually, we tend to hire with people with some experience. We have hired a few in the past who have come through an apprenticeship scheme that we work with, who come with no experience, and actually someone in my team who at the minute who's done that and is amazing.
Yeah.
But generally like a year plus, but whether it's a year or 5 years, I don't really mind if they're the right kind of culture fit, the right sort of person.
Sure.
So yeah, we've been hiring for both of those roles. It's been certainly interesting here because the quality of applications we get is just like right now is so much better than it typically would be. And normally the struggle is to get conversations going with any good recruiters when I'm hiring. It's pretty painful.
Yeah.
At the minute, there's a lot of good people applying and kind of around and showing interest. So that's
so how do you, this is what I'm finding too, is that there are a lot, the candidate pool is just much larger than it normally is, right? So how are you, how is the right candidate differentiating themselves?
Yeah, I think this might be a bad indictment on me, but I think it makes me lazier when looking for people, because there are a lot of people around, and the ones who are kind of taken the view a little bit of waiting for the ones who are more proactive to show like the right approach, and then I'll engage with them. Which, as I say, maybe it's just maybe it's too extreme, and I've kind of just been lazy. But actually, it's a good way when it's so competitive. It's a good way of filtering, right? And it's probably the same advice that we give to candidates all the time: is you've got to do something to help yourself stand out.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the things that we did a few months ago, me and some of the team just posted on LinkedIn that we were hiring. Mm-hmm. And posted a bunch of questions to say, if you're applying for the job, we want to know the answers to these questions, but we didn't put it in the advert that we posted out. So it was on our LinkedIn feed, but obviously it would get buried in kind of our profiles after a couple of days of posting other things. But the people who took the time to go and look at us, look at our activity, go through that, found that maybe a week ago we'd said, if you see this, we want to know the answers to these questions.
Little treasure hunt. I like it.
Yeah. And then
but again, I think it's really relevant actually to the job itself, because recruiting is such a research intensive position and very much focused on LinkedIn and being able to dig on LinkedIn and find these things. I think that's not a bad way to show that you have the skills necessary to be successful as a recruiter, especially utilizing LinkedIn in that capacity, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the slightly less kind of intense side of that kind of approach is just to say, like, I'd expect anyone to contact me directly, even if they've applied for the advert. They may or may not answer those questions. Fair enough. Like only a couple of people did. But like as a minimum, as a recruiter, certainly if you've got some experience, if you're just applying and not doing anything else, for me, it's an immediate red flag of like, how proactive are you? How interested are you? And the advice you see from everyone at the minute is reach out directly, right? Do something as well as the application.
Yeah, but so how many applicants are actually connecting with you on LinkedIn? Because very few of our applicants are doing that, right? And that's a huge part of the job. So if you connect with me on LinkedIn after applying, that shows that you understand the value of networking and connecting on LinkedIn. And that's a big part of being a recruiter. So if you can do things that are job specific during the interview process itself to show that you have this understanding of what you'll be doing, the tools that you'll be using, that gives you a leg up on other candidates when these other candidates are not connecting with you on LinkedIn. The same thing can be said for follow-up notes. How many follow-up notes have you received after interviewing these candidates too? What has that percentage been like?
I don't know exactly, but
not everyone.
Pretty low. Yeah, pretty low.
That's another way to differentiate yourself. And not just the follow-up. Okay, so my advice is that when you interview with somebody, definitely send a follow-up note after. Say, Adam, really enjoyed our conversation. think this opportunity is great and look forward to next steps, right? Then the advice or the questions I always get is, okay, Adam, I haven't heard anything in 4 or 5 days from the recruiter. Should I contact them again? Should I check in? My advice is yes, but if you really want to differentiate yourself, don't check in by asking about your status. Send a note saying, I really enjoyed our conversation last week. Here are some thoughts I had on the opportunity based on our conversation. This is maybe what I would do when I first started. These are some ideas I think might be good to implement. Something different that sets you apart, showing that you thought about the opportunity, you did some additional research. This is something that interests you enough that you put together a plan, maybe a 30, 60, 90-day plan or something similar. That will set you apart from all the other candidates that are just following up and asking about their status.
Yeah, exactly. I think that like ties into this like your mentality should be that you've got to approach it like you would approach doing a job. Like the job search is a job, and I know if you're in a role that's difficult, but actually majority of people who are applying for stuff, probably certainly in our sector, for recruitment jobs, are on furlough or aren't working at the minute. So
or working remotely, that gives you a little bit more time. You don't have to commute to the office. Use that time on your job search.
So approaching it like a job and having a kind of workflow of like, right, these are pick the ones that you think are the best fit, and then make sure you follow 4, 5, 6 steps throughout that process for that particular role. And if it doesn't come to anything, it doesn't come to anything, but you've kind of given it a thorough approach. I would say, I think probably 2% of people who applied contacted me directly for the stuff we had adverts out for. And I would speak to all of them. Anyone who gets in touch directly, 100%, I would have a conversation with them. Anyone, the percentage of people who call our office, or our office is on, we've got an office number diverted, but still you can get through to us on it, it's probably even lower. It's probably 0.5%. And again, I would always take that call because someone's shown the initiative to do it. But
now that you mentioned it, nobody has called me. No applicant has called me. That's funny.
So I would say that's a surefire way to get a conversation going if you're struggling to get any kind of traction through applications. Calling up as a recruiter.
Agreed.
Is a no-brainer.
And what about the interview itself? I find that candidates need to be more prepared during the interview. There are certain questions that pretty much every interviewer is going to ask, and you need to really lock this in. You can practice on your own and have answers ready to go. You can memorize the spiel in a way that it doesn't seem like you have it memorized. But there are certain questions that I promise you that will just come up at some point. And I can certainly, if anyone.
What are your standard questions? What do you always ask?
So that's questions like, give me run through your background. Give me a high level overview of your experience. And that's always going to come up because the interviewer is going to want to hear how they describe their experience. They're also going to be checking their communication style, communication skills, that sort of thing during this question. It's your elevator pitch, really, and you want to make sure that you have that locked down because that's always going to be asked, right? You don't want to fumble on such a standard question like that. Questions like, what is your core skill set? What distinguishes you from other folks out there that have been operating in a similar capacity? If you've interviewed with me, that's a question that I always ask. Because I want to know how you feel your skill set, how your experience is different from others. Why should we consider you over other candidates? That's a fair question, and I think one that you need to be prepared for. You'll always be asked, what skills do you think you need to improve upon, right? So everybody's constantly learning and developing their skill set. What is it that you're needing to develop at this point? What types of challenges have you faced at work and how have you overcome them? That's a standard question. Walk me through your reasons for leaving each role. You're going to want to have good reasons for that. So these are standard questions. If you're listening to this, you want me to send you a list, of standard questions. I have them. I can shoot them over to you to take a look at, practice them, and maybe not all of them will be asked during the interview, but I guarantee you that there will be questions on there that you will be asked. So it would be good to have answers ready to go and really lock it in.
Yeah.
I think,
yeah. The research side of that as well, I would say, is also important. Like, I would still interview even from the people who've probably contacted me directly, and then kind of get some engagement, and maybe I'll interview them. There's still then quite a lot of them who don't know that much about us, or generally people know what we recruit for, but things like, we always hire, part of our hiring process is hiring in line with our company values. So knowing what they're coming to the interview, knowing what they are, is a great way to kind of set yourself aside.
Yeah,
often we'll ask people, and they won't have an idea. So
this is
like that.
This is what I don't think people realize, is that I would say about 50% of the interview, the hiring manager or recruiter, they're assessing your skill set to make sure it's in line, your experience, and that sort of thing. Can you actually do the job? But then the other 50% is what you're talking about, which is culture fit, personality, communication skills, soft skills. Incredibly important. Where this is what I think. I think there are 5 areas that we're evaluating candidates. 1 is, are they prepared? 2 is, are they articulate? Can they communicate effectively? 3, are they friendly? Are they somebody that you're going to want to work with? And that's important to keep in mind. 4 is, are they enthusiastic? This is where a lot of people have issues, in my opinion. Their enthusiasm does not come across. And there's a good portion of people that we interview that seem like they just rolled out of bed, and they're very robotic, or they don't show any emotion and no enthusiasm for the role, for the company. That's a big turnoff. We want people that are excited, that understand what we do and want to get involved. And it's not that difficult to show this, I think, on a call, and it's something that you need to keep in mind. And then number 5 is your experience. Are you experienced enough for the position? But personality, culture fit, enthusiasm, these are things that you can't forget on a call, and need to be practiced, in my opinion, just as much as your answers to the standard interview questions do.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's same here. It's massively important for us, and it's as important. It's not more important, but it's as important as kind of ability as a recruiter. And like, we would certainly always, would be happy not to hire someone who we think might fill loads of jobs and bill loads of money if it's not going to be a good culture fit for the rest of the business. Like, it's that important for us. So I think it's undervalued a lot of the time, certainly.
Yeah. What about the resumes that you've seen? Have they been up to par? The actual content, the layout and format, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, probably the ones that I've ended up interviewing, because either they're, again, there's a bit of correlation between the people who take the proactive approach, get in touch, are engaging, and probably have got quite good CVs. But yeah, on the whole, I'm, again, often surprised at recruiters who don't have any kind of achievements or commercials or anything that sets them apart from just the responsibilities of doing the job, which again is a most common feedback on a CV. Like, if it's just a list of responsibilities, then it doesn't show anything about you. It just shows something about the job that anyone can do. So still a lot of that. I think a lot of just lack of commercial awareness on CVs, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's something that can set you apart in a market where there are so many candidates for positions. Your resume, your LinkedIn profile, these are things that really need to be buttoned up. This is the first representation of yourself, right? You have all the time in the world to work on your resume and LinkedIn profile. And if you're sending over something that's not as buttoned up as it should be, that's representation on you and your work, and what your work quality, I think, is like. I don't want to make assumptions, But again, you have a chance here to really show the quality of the effort that you put in, the work. It's something that you really want to tighten up, especially competing against so many other candidates that are out there.
Yeah, and LinkedIn is is now a huge part of that, because
we'll go to their LinkedIn profile, I'm sure, especially in a recruiter position. It's very important to check out their LinkedIn profile. So.
So LinkedIn content, I think, is now crucial in terms of, it's the phrase personal brand is far overused, but it definitely does have an impact. Like I've had applications from a couple of people who I'm already connected with on LinkedIn, and I'm already aware that they produce good content, well written, interesting stuff that I'd probably like to engage with at some point. And then if I see an application come through from them, I'd immediately go, oh, brilliant. Like, I already kind of have some sort of awareness and respect of that person. I definitely want to talk to them. So
and
it does have a big part.
I'm not sure that so many people are aware too, that you don't have to just wait to see their content that they're posting. You can go to the person's profile, go to see activity, and then you can see all of the activity that they've had, not just the posts that they're making and content that they're putting out, but also all of the comments that they're making on people's posts. That's something you might want to keep in mind if you're job searching and you're commenting and posting on things that maybe are controversial, or there's certain things I don't know, political or otherwise. You might want to keep in mind, or just the way that you're even speaking, because this is something that recruiters or hiring managers can take a look at on your profile directly.
Yeah, and it's definitely something I'm aware of, because I probably didn't used to check on it loads, and we've had experiences of hiring people here who, once they started working for us, we realized were spending a lot of time commenting on stuff that had no relation, posting on stuff that had absolutely no relation to work, and was pretty kind of strong opinions on various things that if I'd have noticed them doing before, I probably wouldn't have got involved. So
something you definitely have to keep in mind. Yeah, interesting. Good. Okay, so what do you think that candidates can do then to be top of mind, to really set themselves apart from everybody else that you're interviewing? What have we not talked about yet? So we talked about the resume, LinkedIn profile, follow-ups, the interview process itself. Is there anything else you think that candidates should be thinking about to set them apart? Or have you even noticed anything that turns you off about certain candidates too? I think that might be an interesting question also. For me, it's I think a big part of it is we talked about this in prior episodes, where I'm 100% guilty myself of this, is when you're just starting out, having an ego that is not appropriate for your level of experience. And I find that when I'm interviewing candidates that are junior in their career or just starting out, there are certain individuals that I think are trying to overcompensate for their lack of experience, and are trying to, I think, maybe overinflate their experience, or talk about having so much knowledge already in the space, when that's not expected of somebody so junior in their career, and they don't need to do that. The expectation for a junior level position is that you're going to come in, you're going to need training, and you don't need to act like you know everything. And this is advice that I wish I told myself when I first started out, because I was completely overconfident in my interviews, and to a point where it was probably nauseating. So I see that a lot with entry-level candidates too, and it's okay to have humility and be humble, and talk about how you still have so much to learn, and that's what we're looking for, is people that understand this and want to learn and want to grow, and really want to be trained on this and want a long, successful career. Positions that don't require this level of experience, you're not expected to know everything. And on a call, that's something that I look forward to, that sort of humility.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it's a good point. One of the things I'd written down when I was kind of thinking about this ahead of our call was, and it's someone else I'm connected with who I saw post about this the other day, but extreme self-awareness.
Yeah.
Like that's a very valuable and kind of commendable trait to have. And yeah, definitely.
And it's a fine line between the appropriate level of confidence and overconfidence, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I think that's something you need to be self-aware about.
Yeah. I tell you what, now I've thought of a few smaller things that definitely put me off.
Yeah.
People who are very expectant for you to talk to them at the exact time when they're available, or
Right.
who give you no flexibility, or like that definitely irritates me.
You know what bothers me, and this happens all the time with 80% of candidates, I would say, is that I'm always like, okay, would love to chat. Give me your availability and the number I can reach you on. I always get their availability. They never give me their number. And I have to ask again. And sometimes I have to ask again for their number. I don't know why. Why is it so hard to get their number? And sometimes I give up and say, okay, just call me at this time and give them my number. It's very strange. But, maybe people are not reading messages fully and they're just responding very quick. But give the interviewer all the information they need to contact you.
Yeah, make it as easy as possible. That's it. I would always say to people, I'll talk to you before work, I'll talk to you at night, I'll talk to you in the evening, like whatever works, but just kind of give a good amount of availability and we can see when it fits. But people who are like, oh no, I can talk to you in 4 days' time and it's got to be at 9:52, otherwise I'm not in, like I can't do it. I always find that a bit like, you can't prioritize very well.
That's interesting. So I'm flexible too. I will do interviews after normal working hours because I know it's tough for people that are working. But it kind of irks me when a candidate expects that and they don't ask me if it's okay if we have a conversation after normal working hours. Like they don't respect my time. I'm respecting their time, where I would certainly do that. But if they're not asking me if that's doable or if that's okay, if I would be comfortable with that, and they're just expecting that I would call them sometime between the hours of 6 and 7 o'clock when I have kids, we're making dinner, we're doing so. I have my poor wife has to take over for me in order for me to make that call. So there are certain, it's not so easy, right? We're talking about self-awareness or just awareness in general. And I think that's an important part of it too.
Yeah, for sure. I'll tell you another one. People who too easily slip into calling you buddy or pal or mate, or, I've definitely had a few of those where.
Yeah, I think you're right. If you've built a relationship with somebody, and that takes some time, certainly, I give some mans and get some mans back, and that sort of thing. But you're right. It's actually interesting. I'm sure you get this too as a recruiter. When we're recruiting for our clients' positions, we get candidates that are a bit more relaxed in chatting with us than they would be with the hiring manager themselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm okay with that. Other times I'm not, because I don't exactly know if this is the way that they would be speaking to a hiring manager. And if so, I don't feel comfortable that they would be representing me or themselves in a positive light, right? Sometimes they'll say, Adam, I'll tell you this as a recruiter, I would never say this to a hiring manager. That makes me feel a little bit more comfortable, right? So I would be cognizant of the way that you're speaking with a recruiter, because we're also assessing the way that you would be chatting with our client. But if you do say things to make it more comfortable, to make it more aware that that this is just between us or something like that, I think that's an effective way to do it. But I think it's important to keep in mind.
Yeah, and that's a good point as well in terms of written, how like your written skills. We would sometimes use that as a part of an assessment when we were talking, like as a team here, and we're looking at hiring, and say, actually, like how did they, not just did they communicate with us, but actually what was the quality of that communication like? Can they write well? Can they construct a good email? Things like that will all play a part.
Yeah. How do you assess a good recruiter? After a few weeks, they've joined you and they're still in the training stage, but what makes you feel good that you hired the right person?
Yeah, I'm still not sure I know the answer to that. Certainly not after a few weeks. I think it's always a good sign. I've always said to people, like, you've got to have a real appetite to learn, because actually just learning the market, the skills, the types of, if you've got no experience and no knowledge of e-commerce, just being like, you can learn it if you're interested in learning. And it's actually what I find very interesting. And for most people, I think, it's something that's very relatable. So
Yeah.
just an appetite to learn. I think people who just pick stuff up and have a good memory is actually a very good trait. Like, as much as you can rely on a CRM and and all of that stuff to, like, you definitely have to be good at using those things. But actually, most of the good recruiters I know can, like, have good recall of, oh, we've picked up this job. I can think of 10 people off the top of my head who I think I would call about it. So it's a pretty useful trait.
Yeah.
One of the things I always struggle to interview for, as I was saying at the beginning, and really struggle to know about someone until you see them doing the job, is just a sense of urgency. I think people who, have a natural kind of, almost, I'd rather be holding someone back than the other way around, right? Someone who's, like, super eager to get on with stuff and get on the phone, and just like that kind of excitement and urgency of, right, I've got a job brief on, so I need to stop what I'm doing and prioritize and just, like, do some work on that. I think
that's transferable for a lot of positions, even outside of recruitment, but especially for recruitment. This is what I tell people, that speed and efficiency in recruitment are critical. You are going to be 100 times more successful if you're quick and efficient in recruiting than if you're not.
But sense of urgency and speed, I always find it's difficult to really know until you see someone working.
Yeah. Recruiting is an interesting field where the actual job itself is not that hard. I had a mentor early on. They're like, Adam, recruiting is not rocket science. And it's not. But what's difficult about it, and I think for recruiters that we're hiring, which are more on the entry level and that have not been in e-commerce specifically, is picking up the nuances of the industry. And that's, what these jobs entail. A good thing I like to have them do is just take a look at job descriptions. Take a look at what these roles entail, the companies that these jobs are sitting at. What exactly are these people doing? Do you see anything in these job descriptions that you don't know what the words mean? What they're actually going to be doing? Ask me. Ask me as many questions as you possibly have, because this is how you learn, and this is how you're going to be effective in determining whether or not somebody's a good fit for the position, by understanding the entire e-commerce ecosystem, by understanding all of the different functions within e-commerce, understanding each individual position and the responsibilities. That's going to take some time. So there's that aspect of it. There's the building of your network, which is very important too. Both of these take time. So it's a big investment. I think the longer you stick with it, the more successful you're going to be. Recruiting as a whole has a very high turnover rate because you have to be a little crazy to go into it. It's a tough position. Our product that we're working with is people, and people are very unpredictable. It's kind of like real estate in that you may spend 100 hours showing people a house and they give up and you lost on all that time, and it's frustrating. Very similar in recruitment. You could spend a lot of time on a position. That position maybe gets canceled after a few months or a month, and you've done all that work for nothing, and it's frustrating. You have to have a certain amount of being able to roll with the punches, and think long term, because that's how you're going to be successful as a recruiter. And I think some people, they don't have that ability. They're looking for more of an immediate reward, and oftentimes in recruitment you don't have that. So I think that's an interesting thing when you're thinking about recruiting as a field, in order to be successful, it's something that you need to stick with long term, and in order to develop your network, in order to develop a really solid understanding of the positions that you're recruiting for.
Yeah, definitely. I think increasingly, now more than ever, the time invested in becoming kind of an expert, or close to an expert in just one particular area, is will pay off massively, but it'll take a good few years before it does. So certainly any expectation of the OTEs that you often see, posted alongside recruitment jobs is pretty,
and that's a good point.
You don't have that.
This is actually, so what we do is we offer a base salary, and then we have a commission plan, but the commission plan for new or entry-level recruiters is much different than the commission plan for experienced recruiters that know what they're doing. So for the experienced recruiters, you have the ability to make more in commission, but it's harder to reach, right? But for a new or entry-level recruiter, we know that as someone just starting out, that's difficult. We want to make it more achievable. You're not going to have the ability to make as much in this commission plan because you're just starting out, but it is going to be something that's achievable and something that we can change down the line too.
Yeah, sure. Same with us. We would always start people out, or at least give them the option when they start out, of having no threshold, but a lower percentage of what they make. So
correct. Yep.
You can start earning commission quicker, but as you say, it won't be as much as if you did kind of if you were on the other commission scheme. But the normal commission scheme we have comes with a threshold, and often it takes a while to kind of get yourself above it. So
there's a learning process, a learning curve.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, good. All right, excellent. Let's Andy, we haven't done get to know your favorite recruiter, favorite e-commerce recruiter in a while. Rapid fire questions. You want to do some of that before we head out here?
I'll do a very personal one. What was your favorite activity at camp, the kids camp that you had earlier in the summer?
Oh, that I did with the kids?
Yeah.
Oh man, my favorite activity. Okay, so I will say it was camping out in our backyard. I am not a big camper. I never camped as a kid. My parents are not outdoor people like that.
Right.
So for me, this was the first time I slept outside in a tent.
Really?
Yes. Even as a kid, I did go to camp myself, but the only time it was a day camp, and the only time we had overnights, it was actually in like a big building where we all had sleeping bags and that sort of thing. So it was never real camping. So it was the first time I did it.
Did you last the night?
I did. It was a lot of fun. What I did not realize is that the morning dew would soak through our tent.
Yeah.
So I have two kids. My older kid is 6, and he slept the whole night with me in the tent. My 4-year-old, no, he went back inside. He slept with his mom in his nice warm bed. But I get up and I'm looking at my 6-year-old, and he's drenched, and I'm like, oh, is he sweating? Like, I don't understand what this is. And then I realized it was the dew. He had slept all the way on the side of the tent, and it had just come up on him.
Can't touch the sides.
So we learned at that point to put some tarp down and that sort of thing. But it was an interesting experience. But it was really nice being outside with the stars, and it was perfect weather. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What about you? What was your favorite thing you did this summer?
Well, like a lot of people, I had plans to go abroad that were cancelled. But I mean, relatively boring. But we have my family have always had a place in, or like a static caravan in South Wales. There's an area of the coastline called the Gower down there, and
a lot of beaches.
It's stunning. Yeah, a lot of beaches. Stunning area. And just getting the chance to go there, taking my daughter there for the first time.
Yeah. How far is that?
My wife and my daughter, we had a week there. It's probably 3.5 hours away, something like that.
Okay, good distance.
But we've had actually a very good summer by our standards generally. So we had a week there where it was kind of 27, 28 degrees C. I don't know what that is. What that is for you? I can't convert, but pretty warm. And it's just a lovely part of the world, especially having been in, lockdown in a house pretty much in London for a long time. So there's that.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, listen, great chatting with you. Good luck with the hiring that you're doing over there.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you. Thank you. And let's connect soon. Okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely do another one soon.
All
Cool.
right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Again, if you want a list of standard interview questions, I'll send those over to you. Just shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Or if you have any questions at all about how to differentiate yourself as a candidate, reach out to Andy or I, and we'll be back on soon.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Take care.